Hello, my wonderful, beautiful friends, guys. Welcome back to our /EntitledPeople, where you know the deal. People believe they always get what they want, when they want, because no one else matters. And in today's episode, Karens are throwing tantrums over parking spots, guys. Harassing complete strangers. The stories are absolutely wild. I hope you enjoy them. Hit subscribe if you're not subscribed. And as always, you can send or link your posts to this email right here. Let's dive in. Okay, so this happened this past weekend while grocery shopping with my 18-month-old child. It's not as bad as some of the other stories I've heard you tell, but I thought it belonged here. The town I live in has a big community festival each year on the main street. It's a typical New England type of main street, in that it's actually two different one-way streets with a big field in the middle. Now, the small number of available parking spots around the area are usually taken by the vendors, so the town offers shuttle service from the local grocery store, which is about a mile away. This in turn makes parking tough at the grocery store, so I made sure to get there early. The store has parking for customers with children spots in a couple of rows. It's pretty convenient because it's 4 spots on one side with a cart pickup/return in the middle. So instead of trying to carry my kid, the diaper bag, the reusable shopping bags into the store to grab a cart, they're all right there, and this is important. The players are me, the Karen, and the store manager. I was lucky enough to grab one of the kids' spots Saturday morning, which is great, because there weren't many other spots available, if any. I was in the process of loading my kid into the cart when it started. A woman comes marching up behind, and I hear, "Excuse me." Hearing that, I step aside, thinking I'm in her way of grabbing a cart. I just go about my business because I have no idea she's talking to me. I get a few feet away from her when I realize that woman was talking to me. The Karen says again, "Excuse me." I then look around and realizes she's talking to me, and I respond, "What's up?" This is when she screams at me and says, "You parked in the wrong spot." At that, I gesture to the sign, and I say to the woman, "Oh, these are for customers with children." Now, at this point, I gear myself up for an argument about how they're not for dads with children, which is actually a disagreement I got into once, but that's another story. The Karen says, "It says children. You have 1 child. Children means 2 or more. That sign does not say parking for people with a child." Hearing her say that, I just smile, and I say to her, "I think we both know it just means customers who have their kid with them." Karen replies, "It means customers with 2 children or more. You have to go park somewhere else." I just start pushing my cart and my child towards the store, and I tell Karen, "Have a good day, ma'am, I'm not moving." And cue the shrieking, and I mean shrieking, to the point that it made my child jump up. The Karen screams, "That spot is not for you and your 1 kid. It's for people like me who have 2 kids." At this point, I decide to stop engaging and just go inside the store. I'm not trying to get into a parking lot dispute with my 18-month-old child with me. Heck no. I was almost there when the Karen starts blasting the horn of her car. Not just beeping it once, but she was laying on it, so it was a constant horn sound. She screams, "Get your effing car out of that spot, or I'll have the manager tow it." I just go in the store just as the manager was heading out. The guy heard the yelling and the beeping, and he asked what was happening. And I told him the truth. Some crazy lady was pissed off because I parked in the spot for customers with kids. Hearing me say that, he looked at me, looked at my child, and then back outside, where Karen had just parked across 2 handicapped parking spots. She then climbs out of her SUV with 2 kids, who look to be about 10 to 12 years old. The store manager sees this and he runs outside saying, "Ma'am, you can't double park in the handicap spots. You'll get a ticket." Karen replies, "I don't give a damn. If you're letting this man park in that spot, I'll park wherever I want since you don't care. Since you are letting some a-hole take up the kid parking spots with only 1 kid." I just kept walking after that. I couldn't hear anything else. Thankfully, I didn't run into her while shopping, which was probably a small miracle. 45 minutes later, I was heading out the door, and I see a cop parking right next to the lady's SUV, and he's writing her a ticket. The state I'm in, it's about a $150 fine for the first violation, and $250 for any after that. I'm not sure if taking up 2 spots equals 2 fines, but she's probably lucky her car wasn't towed. Hopefully the cop wrote out 2 tickets, one for the $150 and one for $250. Some people are absolutely ridiculous, I tell you. And I'm pretty sure that's a double ticket because I've read a story once where a cop wrote out 3 tickets for a guy who triple parked across 3 disabled spots. Again, the nerve of some people, seriously. Like, we all know what that sign means, so why she was using that weird Karen logic is beyond me, guys. And I love this person's comment. This person says, "You should have pointed out that both children and customers are plural. So if she wants to use the spot, then by her own logic, she needs to be 2 people." Yeah, that would have been good, and you know for a fact that her head might have exploded if OP decided to use that logic and turn it around on her. And this person shares their similar parking spot experience, and they say, "I remembered this story a few years back while going on a job interview in a popular downtown area. So just to preface, this is a very busy downtown area and parking is far in view. I happened to find a prime parking spot on arguably the busiest street in that area. I was walking back from an interview, and just as I go to open my car door to get inside, a very flustered, middle-aged man pulls around the corner with what I'm assuming are his kids, and the interaction goes as such. The guy screams at me and says, "Hey, are you moving soon?" I reply, "Yes, I'm just about to leave." And the guy responds, "Well, can you hurry up and get out of the spot? My kids are going to be late for their piano recital." At this, I'm shocked at how rude he was, and I tell him, "Sir, it'll just be a moment. I have to load some things into my car." And that's when he says, "That's not my problem. You need to pull out of the spot, then load your stuff. People have things to do. We can't wait for you." At this point, I don't engage further because this idiot is not worth getting angry over. So I take my sweet time, loading up my car, putting on my seatbelt, taking a long sip from my water bottle, you get the point. And the whole time, the guy's swearing at me. Now, the most delicious part of this whole story is when I pull off, a drunk Karen whips around the corner, hits a car, and a cop who is closely behind her angrily directs her to my spot, before the guy could even pull in, and he loses it. I'm just driving away at this point, and I look back at the cop dealing with these two, while I'm just laughing all the way home, thinking that if this guy wasn't such an entitled jerk, he would probably have a parking spot. See, this is instant karma at its finest. And the best part is, now he's extra late for his kid's recital, or maybe he missed it, all because he was so frickin' rude. Like, I just never understand how some people can be so rude to complete strangers. And the Karen in this next post, guys, learns a lesson she won't forget. So this happened a few months ago. It was my daughter and myself. Now, my oldest daughter, whom is 10, is severely physically and mentally disabled. Basically, she's like a 6-month-old baby in a 10-year-old's body. She can't walk, so she's always used a wheelchair. When this happened, it was a Saturday, so the Target parking lot was pretty packed. And fortunately, I found a handicap spot open. So I parked the car and began unloading my daughter's wheelchair out of the back of my SUV, when a woman with a handicap mirror placard pulls up behind my car and she rolls down the window. There's kids bouncing around in the back of her car, so I assume she's a mom. The conversation went something like this. The woman says, "Excuse me, ma'am." Now me, assembling the wheelchair, I'm not looking up immediately. The woman repeats herself louder this time, and she says, "Ma'am, excuse me." At this point, I look up, and I respond, "Yeah." She then goes on and says, "I don't know if you've noticed, but this is a handicap parking spot. I understand you have a small child that requires a stroller, but I'm disabled and I need this spot, so you'll need to park in another spot not designated for a handicapped person." I respond to Karen and I say, "Oh, I'm fully aware this is a handicapped spot. This isn't a stroller, it's my daughter's wheelchair." The Karen says, "Well, I don't see a handicap placard in your window." I then move over, showing her my handicap license plate, and I say, "That's because we have a handicap plate." She then says, "Well, even if your child is handicapped, you are not, so you don't need that spot. You could easily park way back in the parking lot and load her up and push her to the store. What's your daughter's disability? She isn't autistic, is she? I have nerve pain and back pain, and it makes it excruciating to walk long distances." Now, hearing that, I'm kind of flabbergasted. Like, the woman said that to me like it was gonna change my mind. Like her disability trumps my daughter's disability or something. And not only did this woman just assume my child was autistic, which she isn't, she just assumed that my child and myself don't need accommodation, which makes me pissed. So I respond, "Listen, lady, I'm sorry the handicap spots are full at the moment, but I'm not moving. It's none of your business what my child's disability is. And in the time you've sat here harassing me over my spot, you could have looked for another spot." She then turns red with anger and she says, "Are you discriminating against me because you see that I'm overweight?" I respond, "I never said anything about your appearance." She then starts yelling now and she says, "You are an effing bitch. My tax dollars pay for this spot, and people like you abuse the system to get a free ride. You can walk." Again, I'm absolutely flabbergasted because this is a bizarre rant she's going on. I tell her, "I really don't know what to tell you, but I'm not moving and I'm not going to argue with you about it." At this point, we have a crowd of onlookers. The woman keeps yelling and I ignore her and I load my daughter into her chair. Finally, after my daughter's all strapped in, I look up at her and the woman is super red and sweaty. Now, I didn't think it was possible to make me madder at this point, but the woman then yells that my daughter is the ugliest child she's ever seen. And that's when this one woman who was watching this apparently had enough and she unloads on Karen and she murders her with words. This random woman is screaming every nasty thing you can imagine about this Karen to her face. She's saying stuff about her weight, her attitude, her lack of respect for people, her ugly van, her messy hair. It was absolutely brutal what was being said about her. The woman finally speeds away down the parking lot, and that's when I tear up. I've never been treated that way before, especially concerning my disabled child. The woman, whose name I learn is Cynthia, notices me crying, and she comes over to hug me. She was so incredibly sweet. I thanked her quite a few times for coming to mine and my child's defense. She then asked if she can give me and my kiddo a hug, and I'm like, of course. Anyhow, Cynthia cheers me up. She's extremely witty and she got me laughing extremely hard. We walk into the store together and I do my shopping. I'm not good with confrontation, so I'm incredibly thankful for Cynthia stepping in to defend us. What a hero Cynthia was that day, guys. And seriously, it made my day knowing that that woman came to the rescue and she just unloaded on that nasty Karen when OP didn't have the courage to. And I think we can all agree there needs to be a Cynthia at every store to face off against Karens who think they can pick on people. Cynthia deserves all the good things in life. That said though, guys, Karen calling someone's child ugly, and in this case a disabled child, the cherry on top would have been if Cynthia started handing out smacks left and right to this Karen who deserves it for saying such horrible things. Guys, let me know what you would do. How many of you would step in and give Karen that piece of your mind? So when I started at my new company, we had used all the assigned parking spots in the adjacent parking garage, and I was given a spot in a building a couple of blocks away. When I got in early one morning, I had to be let in by security, as the building was not yet unlocked. I talked with the security guard briefly, and this started a bit of a friendship. After a week or so, he asked why I always came through the front door, instead of through the parking garage, and I explained my situation. He ends up giving me one of the extra spots that was assigned to security staff. I was only allowed to park there Monday to Thursday, as they needed the spot for cleaning crews on Friday. This spot is only about 20 feet from the pedestrian bridge to the building, so it's a pretty nice setup. We also have 2 company visitor spots in the same adjacent lot. However, they're on the top floor. They're exposed to the sun and require walking down 3 flights to get to the bridge. That said, we've had this senior engineer visiting from a different office the last 2 weeks, parking in the visitor spot. On Tuesday, we went to our cars together, and that's when he saw where I was parked. Well, when I got to work yesterday, the guy was already parking in my spot. I kindly let him know that he needs to move his vehicle out of my spot or his car might be towed. Again, we're right downtown, and we have many people who park in this garage without permission. The guy told me it was fine and to not worry about it, that it was a company parking spot. I told him I really didn't think it was a good idea, and then tried explaining again. But the guy brushed me off, saying he doesn't want to hear it and that they'll understand. I followed up with an email letting him know that that spot wasn't leased by our company, but that I had permission to park there by security until a spot opened in the garage. The guy again replied to my email saying he doesn't want to hear another word of it. So I parked in my assigned spot in the other parking garage, as my boss man doesn't like non-visitors parking in the visitor spot. I proceed to not worry about it, just like I was told. Well, come lunchtime, the senior engineer comes storming back to the office and the guy's fuming. Apparently, the security guard saw that the vehicle parked in my spot was not my crappy rundown Honda Civic, but it was a rather nice new shiny Tesla. Not knowing who it belonged to, they decide to have the vehicle towed. I'm not exactly sure what came of this, and I bet I'll find out later today. But I am happy that I sent the cover your ass email, as the senior engineer outranks me by a large margin, and I don't need someone thinking that I left him high and dry out of spite. Update. So this isn't the satisfying update I was hoping for at all. Apparently, the senior engineer called and he complained to building management. He explained the situation, and then he complained about security letting me park in that spot. And it turns out that security doesn't have the authority to allow me to park in this spot. The security guard that let me park in that spot apparently got chewed out, and I haven't seen him after this incident. I also lost my parking in the close garage. My boss man is not upset with me, which is the only good thing about this. The senior engineer was bitching to anyone who would listen. The guy's such a victim. No idea who had to pay the towing fees, but I'm pretty confident that the senior engineer did not have to pay. See, no good deed goes unpunished, they say. And this post honestly makes me so upset because the bad guy wins in the end. Like, the security guard was just looking out for OP and he got burned badly. Like, seriously, this is why people often can't have good things, because one entitled idiot will come in and mess the whole thing up. And in this case, apparently without any sort of repercussion, which is infuriating. I have a highly specific job that sends me to construction sites, where I just watch the digger load trucks. Now, of course, it's more complicated than this, but that's not important for the story. My company is usually hired by the owner of the site, not the company which is actually building there. Because of this, I only have to work with the workers there, but I'm not required to do anything else. So on to the story. I was sent to a construction site in the city with very few parking spaces around. Because of this, the company building there had to deal with the city to declare space alongside the road that's usually used for parking to a no parking zone to be able to store some of their stuff, and they had set up signs to make this clear. It was summer at the time, and it was pretty hot. The operator of the digger and I were the only people on site through lunchtime, and that's when some lady shouts to me to come to the entrance of the construction site. I had set myself up in pretty much the only piece of shadow on the whole site, and I really wasn't in the mood to leave that spot. So I shout back to her to tell me what she wants. Well, it turns out she parked in the no parking zone, and she hadn't noticed that the workers had set up a movable fence to surround that zone, to be able to store their tools without it getting stolen right away. So her car, a Porsche, was almost boxed in, as 2/3 of the car were in the no parking zone. The woman is still shouting at me, so after seeing what's going on, I get interested and move in. I make myself to the woman, covered in dust, taking my time moving up to her. The woman was in her 40s maybe, and she wore high heels and a nice dress. Typical business woman. The whole time, she was shouting at me to speed up and move faster as she's in a hurry. So finally, I'm in front of her and she said, "That took you ages. Now you need to move this damn fence so I can pull out of there. Why would you idiots even box me in?" I just turn around slowly and look at her car. Now, it would have been easy for me, even herself, to move the fence and let her out. But the woman wasn't very nice, so I wasn't too excited to help her. I tell her, "I'm sorry, I won't do that." The woman says, "What? Why would you say that? You need to let me out, you idiot." I tell her I'm on break. Now that left her speechless for a moment, and then all hell broke loose. The woman was screaming that she would get me fired, that she would call the police because it was theft, that she knew the mayor, and all kinds of other things. Meanwhile, I just stood there, amused on the inside, just like the operator in his digger, who was laughing so loud that I could almost hear him over her screeching. Now, while it was amusing to see her go off at this point, I was a bit pissed off too, because I could only imagine how this entitled brat was speaking to people she actually had power over. While she's in her tirade, 2 policemen turn the corner. She must have noticed the grin on my face, because she abruptly turns around and she saw the 2 approaching the car. Karen says, "Finally, someone who can help me. Officers, tell him to move the fence so I can pull out." The 2 policemen look at her and then her car and finally at me. One of them walked to her vehicle while the other approached me. The police officer asked, "What's going on here?" I tell him this woman parked in a no parking zone and she's trapped. The policeman understood very fast, as no parking zones are pretty common in the city. He then walks over to the other policeman who was the target of the woman, and he said a few words to him. He then pulled out a small book and began writing a ticket. Only then, it dawned on the lady that she was in trouble. She still kept shouting that she did nothing wrong because she was boxed in, and she wouldn't be in the no parking zone if we just let her pull away. The policeman tells her, "It doesn't matter, you're parking in a no parking zone. Here's your ticket." He then hands her the ticket and moved the fence to let her pull out. She was standing there a few seconds with the ticket in her hands, speechless. She then gets in her car, giving me the stink eye, and she drove off. I tipped my hat when the 2 policemen continued their walk and went back to tell the operator of the digger what happened. We both had a good laugh, after all. Another instance of karmic justice. A rich snobby Karen thinks she can park wherever she wants, and she finds out the hard way. And guys, it would have been so funny if the officers gave her a ticket and not moved the fence. "Oh, I'm sorry, you have to wait until this gentleman is done with his lunch break. He'll move the fence for you then, ma'am." Okay, so this might be the funniest thing I've ever done. So in my city, there's a pub that's attached to a very popular bakery that serves the best donuts in the city. It always causes a long line. Now, because it's attached to a pub, it doesn't close shop until 9 p.m., as there's a solid flow of business rolling in. Anyways, my girlfriend and I get a serious hankering for some sweets, so we decide to head to the shop, and we arrive around 8:30 by car. Now, there are only 3 parallel parking spots a little up the street from the place, and they're all 15-minute spots, which are usually full. We see up the street that, count our lucky stars, a spot is free. My girlfriend pulls a little ahead of the car in front of the spot. She then turns her signal on and begins backing into the parking spot when this white little scooter driving behind us just whips into the spot. I roll our window down and I call out to the rider, "Excuse me, we were just backing in." The driver seems to be a pretty university student who just shrugs her shoulders, and she cries out to me, "I'm sorry, first come, first serve," while her and her friend share a laugh. My girlfriend suggests that we just get sweet treats another time, and that's when I tell her that she can drop me off here. I'll buy the donuts since I know what she likes, and she can loop around and pick me up. She agrees, and I pop out of the car, past the little white Vespa where the girls are still gathering their things, and head to the shop. As always, the line is super long for donuts, and since it's the last batch, the donuts are slim pickings. The girls are behind me, looking at the 5 or so different flavors that are left, and they're talking about which ones are the best and which ones they haven't had yet. That's when I hear one of them jokingly mention, "Thank God we got a parking spot. These donuts will go fast." And they burst out laughing. I then get to the front of the line, and when I'm asked for my order, I request 2 dozen donuts, which is every last one remaining. Now, the girls behind me didn't listen to what I ordered, but eyebrows of confusion started to form on their faces when they slowly saw each donut being loaded into boxes, and their options dwindle. That's when one of the girls in desperation asked the baker who was loading them, "What? You're not even gonna save a few for us?" To which I then turned around and said, "I'm sorry, first come, first serve." She honestly looked like she had just solved a movie mystery and crapped her pants. It's difficult to put into words, but truly an expression I will never forget. It was the best donuts I've ever tasted. I freaking love the pettiness in this one, guys. And I especially love how OP got to throw those exact words right back at her. And I'm just wondering what OP's girlfriend's reaction was when he walked back with 2 dozen donuts and told her that he got a bit of revenge on the Smug parking spot thieves. Absolutely brilliant. And that, my friends, brings us to another end of our /entitled people. Guys, I hope you enjoyed today's stories. If you did, hit that thumbs up. And if you're not subscribed, consider subscribing so you don't miss these crazy stories. And if you missed the last episode on the channel, it's in our /entitled people episode. Another one where a smug HOA Karen messes with the new guy and they get absolutely destroyed. Guys, go check it out if you haven't. And myself and Stevie Boy will see you guys in the next one. We love you.